Well, most people by now would know that that is a bill off a mighty swordfish, Ziphius gladius. It's a replica, it's not off the actual fish. The fish was just under 200 kilos. So you can see, it's not round like a marlin bill, it's actually shaped just like a sword. I started fishing for swords about 25 years ago. I actually thought they were a unicorn, they couldn't possibly exist. Used to go to Marimbula, spend nights out fishing. Did about 10 nights around Australia over 15 to 20 years, and eventually I decided to go to see the best. And I hooked up with Nick Stanzik, Islamorada, Florida. Spent 2 days, actually got a bite. And Nick said, "You must be so disappointed." I said, "You don't understand, mate. 20 years, I've actually got a bite. This is exciting." I took everything Nick showed me, went to Exmouth, caught a squid, first drop, my very first swordfish.
First drop, Paul Worsteling just caught his first broadbill, probably 35, 40 kegs, 160 stand up, the tag's in the other side. We're going to let this fish go.
Here he is. Here's the tag. Tag and release, broadbill, thanks for the inspiration, tuna chaser.
1, 2, 3.
Just swam away!
We got it!
Yeah! Jenny, how awesome was that? Ah!
That was about 5 years ago, and since then I've been lucky enough to catch fish, absolutely epic fish, monstrous, and been involved in about 20 captures. Now, people trying to learn about swords, they want to know all the info. This is all about trying to help you get your first sword or your next sword. And when it comes to gear, there's been some big changes over the years. When I started fishing, it was actually my first sword was on a Tiagra 130. Now I've gone down to these guys here. This is a Telica 50, 2-speed. If you look at this reel, it is absolutely amazing. This particular reel, that one there, actually has a scratch on it. You won't see it. That is from the bill of a fish that was around 400 kilos, give or take 10%, because with swords it's hard to tell. It was in the gunnel, and the bill actually came up and whacked it. Now this particular reel has caught around 2,500 pounds of swordfish and tuna. It's never been serviced and still going strong. The reason I love Telicas, now I've always liked Tiagras, but Telicas are great for swords. You see how narrow that is? An 80 wide is about that wide. This thing here, half the width. When you're actually on a big fish, that gives you much better balance. You're not doing this from side to side, and I can tell you, long fights, the smaller the reel, the better. The other interesting thing, this reel weighs about 1.55 kilos. A Tiagra 80 wide weighs 3.26 kilos. So again, long fights. The longest fight I've had in a sword is 5 hours and 20 minutes. You need everything going your way. These reels, they are the Lambo, unbelievable. So you might think line capacity, we're talking big fish here. How can that reel stop a big fish? There's a few things. Basically what I suggest, underneath there is braid, you can't see it. I like to run about 500 to 700 metres of 80-pound braid. Then top shot with at least 150 metres of mono. Some people talk 100 metres of mono, I actually run 300 times, but this is how it works. When you hook a sword, traditionally, 9 times out of 10, it'll come straight to the surface, have a look, assess the situation, then it'll go down. They'll run, they'll do all sorts of things. After about 20 minutes to an hour, depending on the fight time, they'll find what's called the happy place. They will sit under the boat and they will track into the current. That happy place is normally 50 to 80 metres of water. I've had fish sit there for 4 hours. But what they'll do, they'll then take little runs. There's nothing worse if that fish takes a run of 100 metres and you're onto the braid. Every time I see the braid come out, I have this little panic. You've got to worry about that knot. Even though you've tied it properly, you just never know. It is a weak spot. So what I want to do once I've hooked that fish, I want to have 95% of the fight on mono. If you run 150 yards of mono, you're a much greater chance that's going to happen. If you run 200, that's great too. I know some gun sword fishermen, they run mono the whole way and still catch plenty of fish. So don't be scared to run that extra bit. When it comes to mono, this stuff here, 37 kilo maximum fibre glow, it is unbelievable. You see it's on all Metallicas. The reason I love it so much, it's super high vis. Now 90% of your sword fight is just straight up and down like a tuna. They're literally going like this. When it comes towards the end of the fight, you do have big circles like a tuna sometimes, and you've got to try and lift him as he comes away from the boat. It is imperative the guy driving your boat can see this line. That's why I love the high vis. As I said, 150, 200, absolutely ideal for keeping as much line on the reel during the fight as possible. Wind on leaders, I like to run 250 to 300 pound. There's no need to go any higher. You've got to remember you've got 37 kilo line. There's no way a 200 pound wind on is going to go bang on you. So keep it nice and thin, nice and long. Then your trace. Basically your trace, I like to use around 3 metres of 400 pound. Even fluorocarbon's not a bad idea, but 400 pound leader. I've only ever had one sword maybe bite me off. When I say bite me off, sword me off. But I actually think it was a big maker that ate him because that fish went absolutely ballistic after 3 hours and 15 minutes. We saw the fish, well over 300 kilos, and I reckon a maker went snap, snap. So 400's fine. At the other end, hooks. You got J's, you got circles. Now, my good mate Nick Stanzik, who has caught over 1,000 swordfish, He said to me, Paul, I'd prefer to have caught 10% of what I've lost than every fish I've caught. So it gives you an idea of how many fish fall off. The key with hooks, use confidence. I was lucky enough on April 12, 2016 to catch 3 swords in 3 drops off Tassie. 100 kilos, 120 kilos, and around 300 kilos. Now, one was on a circle, one was on a J, one was on a double J. So they all work. And seriously, sharpen the hook before it goes down. The other little trick too, rig your circle so it sticks out a bit like that by running the mono through the back and wrapping it around. I don't like them hanging loose anymore. I actually like them sitting out to the side. There's my line, so that when it gets through, you get that perfect hook up every time. The other thing with swords, I have a saying, more lights, more bites. These little lights here work absolutely beautiful. This one here, that's caught about 3 swords still going strong. That swivel too. People might say, oh, that's a bit small for a sword. That swivel caught a sword around 300 kilos. It's an Optia, and Optia make the best swivels in the world. Get them as small as you can because you don't want that drag in the water. That thing there, not a problem at all. It is never going to let you down. So, more lights, more bites. I like to run at least 2 diamond lights. I like to run at least one of these Optia sword lights. They light up like a Christmas tree, unbelievable. Sometimes I've even run 2 of these and 2 of them. Think about how dark it is down there. The more attraction you can get to that bait, I reckon the better it is. When it comes to rods, so important you run a bent butt rod. Believe it or not, you probably tell from my physique, I did 4 years of uni, physical education, secondary teaching. I did biomechanics. And if you have a bent butt rod, what it means is when I turn around like this, that rod brings my reel here closer to my centre of gravity and my base of support. So when I fight a fish, the reel is sitting right here, nice and close. With a straight butt, it would put the reel to there and it'd be pulling me over the whole time, making life very difficult. So if you're going to fish swords, run 24 kilo to 37 kilo rods. These T-curves are beautiful. Terez, sensational too. Always run a bent butt. The other thing is too, when it's in the gunnel, you got a much better angle to the bait and it's much easier to see that bite because believe it or not, a swordfish bite looks like this. Tap, 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 tap. It is almost like a whiting. It is just mind-blowing. And then it all turns into chaos. So I hope this has helped a little bit. You'll see there too, it's a cranky. We sell a few versions of those. Put it in the drill. When you don't get a bite, whack it on the end of the reel, zip it up. Go and talk to the team, Tackle Cram and Tackle Mornington. I've gone through this in depth with them. I've been lucky enough to be involved in we're carried away, over 20 swordfish captures, well over 20. I've been fishing in Florida, caught them in WA, caught them off Tassie. Just been epic to be involved. Christy's been involved in 5 of those captures.
Holy mother of swordfish. This is the biggest thing you've ever seen in your life.
Even young Jetty's caught a swordfish and it was just so cool. I think I nearly cried. I just want to say one thing. Swordfish release very well. I was lucky enough to do some scientific studies with Sean Tracy from IMAS in Tasmania. We released fish off Tasmania that then swam around 5,000 kilometres all the way to Townsville, up to the Coral Sea and out towards Tahiti. So what I like to do, get the sword, swim it up to half an hour at times, release it. If it doesn't want to release, it'll probably pop to the top because it's bloated. If it goes down, you've got about a 70% chance it's going to swim forever. And I just think they're too special to take. So give swordfishing a crack, speak to the team. Good luck. Seriously, this stuff, it blows my mind.